All right, so jumping in, I just wanted to go over a couple of quick things before we get to reconciling my accounts. Um, I have, two long-term emergency fund accounts, and I've decided to kind of split out some extra money from those into specific categories. I'm still not ready to just get rid of my rainy day readinesses yet, but yeah, I'm trying to see if this new version kind of works for me. So reconciling my accounts and just making sure that, all the dollar amounts are correct before I'm going to input a few transactions and my paycheck from January. So I split my paycheck between both two checking accounts essentially, and that is mainly because I have some automatic payments that pull from both accounts, and I always need to make sure that the split is there. I've done the calculations on the side for myself to know like how much of each paycheck has to go to which account. Um, and yeah, just putting in any interest that's earned, making sure that all of these numbers tie out before the next part, which will be ensuring that we fund February. So I'm just adding in a couple of my credit card payments. So I try not to carry the balance, right, month over month. All of these are like beyond what the statement balance was because I pay off my credit cards kind of on a bi-weekly basis, so using, the money that I've already set aside through YNAB in each of the categories. So it's kind of something new that I'm doing. Well, since I'm new to YNAB, previously, right, I've talked about the credit card float, so trying to stay ahead of that and not go back into the float. So here's the second account. I just reconciled the work, my paycheck coming in from work. And I'm going to go through all of these other accounts and kind of make sure that, they're reconciled as and when there's a transaction that's made there. Cool. So I have the paycheck amount. I'm going to put it in my month ahead fund because I don't need to fund anything else for January. This is being recorded after January's already ended, and I didn't really spend any more money in January that wasn't accounted for. So I can safely put all of the money into my month ahead for February. So using January's paychecks, right, to pay for or to set aside for items that need to happen in February. I did this incorrectly because I had it double counted, so I just want to make sure that the total reconciled amount is correct. Cool. All right, with that, we're going to jump into February, and now I'm going to take this money out of the month ahead, put it in ready to sign. I've seen people do this two ways, right? They do it in January, so then you don't have this weird like negative number in the assigned column in the month that you're in. We'll see. If it bothers me enough, maybe in March I will do it the other way. But I'm just going through and funding kind of all the essential things that I need to do. I need to do a quick calculation here because I set aside a total of like $965 for both my home insurance and my property tax. But, it doesn't all have to go towards the March one. I guess it doesn't really matter if it does or doesn't because at the end of the day, the money will be used in some way for my property taxes, but it's just the way I've been doing it. So I'm going to continue going through funding all of my essential things. So groceries, grocery restock, shout out to It's Just Finance. They have this category and I really loved thinking about, larger ticket items like, I don't know, you need to buy like rice, a bag of rice, large 25 pounds, or something that you don't buy all the time at the grocery store, but that they need to kind of, that those purchases will happen at some point, rather than it coming out of the typical grocery budget. You kind of have this separate category for those larger ticket items that are irregular kind of purchases, but still related to groceries, so like restocking your pantry, etc. And a lot of my categories still had money left over from January, so any that are like refill up to, I just allowed YNAB to tell me kind of what the underfunded amount was rather than doing those calculations, which is really nice. So I had already sent money to my sinking funds. It actually happens automatically, but you'll see that transaction when I go through and reconcile my accounts. And based on that total amount, I subtracted, a bit more and made sure that my gifts lines are funded. And then for both slot time and for espresso martini tower, I'm actually just going to fund half. If you don't have the fund half button, you can get the extension, the YNAB, don't remember what it's called, but it's an extension that you can get for your browser that has, various options that allows you to kind of change the functionality of, or add, I guess, additional functionality to YNAB. So things like this big, large green bar, etc., are all functionality through that lovely extension. Cool. And I'm just gonna fund all of my kind of big, I don't know if I'll call them sinking funds, but like savings goals. Because those are important. And with this extra money, I'm just gonna keep it in my paycheck holding for now, and I'll decide what I want to do with it later. I might use it towards funding the rest of my slot time and espresso martini tower if that's necessary later in the month. Let's see. I'm going to try not to use the February paychecks to fund those things as much as possible because I want to stay, as close to being a month ahead as possible. I know it'll take time to get really a month ahead because that is not something I've built yet those buffers for, but we'll get there. So I'm just finalizing my checking account balances. So here's where you can see there's things that I've been moving, from my checking account to various savings accounts. So I hold them in these buckets because they earn more interest on them. And especially if the payments are not for a while, they may as well earn, even if it's 50 cents, may as well earn that interest. It's all in the same bank. So transfers happen pretty instantaneously. So I'm not worried about needing a few days to then transfer the money to pay something off. Yeah, it works out well. And especially for large amounts like $4,000, you can get, 15, 16 bucks a month in interest. Probably not that high because it's not 10%, but it's a good chunk of money that just is additional money. And I always reassign the interest earned for a particular category back to that line item. I know I've seen some other YNABers who put their interest earned into ready to assign and then they fund other things with it. But since my interest at this particular bank stays in the envelope that it gets, that accrues the interest, it's easier for me to just do it this way, and actually has worked out great because it adds it creates a little bit of a buffer beyond what I'm automatically intentionally saving for. And $13,000, $20,000 over the years, it adds up. So we'll see how long these higher yield savings percentages stay the way they are in the 4s and the 5s. With Fed rates changing as they are, I don't expect it to last forever, but I'm just using it to my benefit while I can. So you'll see it again here. There's some interest earned right from my sinking funds. So I will move that once I'm ready to assign back to a sinking fund category since it's just sitting in this account. Just reconciling some of those other transactions that I have between my funds. So this $1.15 I'm just going to put towards my mom's birthday gift because it still needed a little bit of extra love. All right. See, 35 cents. It doesn't seem like a lot, but hey, that's 35 cents more than what I was going to put towards it. So it will just sit there, and then that will gain interest next month as well. All right. I think investments, I just need to reconcile and move, yeah, the interest earned back into this account. I think I mentioned this previously, but this is a holding account because I'll do like one large deposit into my Roth IRA when I'm ready to do so. Cool. So 43.80. Let's put it towards rainy day readiness. It goes in the assigned column. So actually I will make a note for myself as to like how much I need to transfer at the end of the month, because I think in January I forgot to do that and I transferred like the full amount including interest. So I actually moved a little extra money into my rainy day readiness like bucket, but that's okay. You know, I didn't really need the extra money just sitting in my checking account, so it was fine, and thankfully not a huge difference, but it starts to add up when you're, you know, budgeting like $450 a month and then suddenly you're like, oh, why do I have to transfer 500? Probably not a problem for anybody else who doesn't actually transfer their funds to my inordinate amount of sinking, like various categories and separate savings buckets. But since I do that, I do need to make notes for myself, just so that when it comes to the end of February and I move the money from my checking account, I know what is actually happening. So I want to fund some of this, and this is the wrong way to do it. I think I can just tell it the amount that I want to move. Perfect. And that's some extra I'll put towards this. So these two kind of compassion type items, they are not necessarily items that I have to fund right now because I have not done my taxes yet, but I know I will be getting a refund, and so I can fund those with some of that tax refund. So I'm not too worried, and I don't consider it like, if I don't fund them, I don't consider myself not to be a month ahead. And then this extra $36, I think for now I will just leave it sitting here. Maybe I'll use it for some fun money later this month. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Noodlenomics. It would be wonderful if you could hit that like button, subscribe, get notified when I post more content. And as always, I'll see you on the next episode of Noodlenomics.